there are two stories here. The hybrid warfare drills being conducted by China, something like Normandy landing, and the power struggle which is taking place between the Communist Party of China and the generals. So first I'll go to Anushka Saxena. Anushka, what do you make of these hybrid drills?
Right. Thank you so much for that. Actually, if you look at the consistent trend since August of 2022, when the then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi landed in Taipei for a high-level political dialogue between Taiwan and the US, China has consistently staged large-scale drills in the Taiwan Strait. Some of them have aimed at demonstrating amphibious landing and assault capabilities. Some have demonstrated the ability of the Chinese carrier fleet to be able to position a carrier battle group permanently in the Taiwan Strait, and others have shown scenarios where excessive firepower using missiles or excessive control of the water surrounding Taiwan could lead to a blockade and an eventual invasion scenario. So these exercises, two in 2024, one in 25, and then two before that, have consistently shown that the naval fleet in particular is expanding. But what is specifically unique about the findings of this Reuters report is just how, under Xi Jinping, the People's Liberation Army is bringing military civil fusion to reality. The largest shipbuilder in the world today is the CSSC, which is the largest Chinese shipbuilding corporation, and that has the ability to manufacture 200 times the commercial ships the US military industrial complex can manufacture with the given resources and in a given period of time. So clearly there is a whole range and a vast majority of civilian ships.
Do you think China can attack Taiwan?
At this juncture, no.
Professor Swaran Singh, do you think that China can attack Taiwan?
Yes, academically, yes, it is possible. In fact, they have a 2005 Anti-Secession Act already in place, which identifies red lines where they say, according to Article 8 and 10, that they will be free to use non-peaceful means. Now, one can interpret that what that would mean. Even otherwise, in several statements at different levels, they have identified things like United Nations membership or any movement where Taiwan stops talking to China about unification, or worst case scenario, if Taiwan declares independence, they have identified red lines on which there will be really use of whatever it takes, military. They normally say non-peaceful means. But what is important is to understand how in case of Ukraine, Chinese have definitely learned lessons. 50 nations have come together to support Ukraine, and China is a bigger challenge for United States in that sense. So United States will support Taiwan as per their two important acts, one of 1978 Taiwan Relations Act and then of 2021 Taiwan Policy Act, but they will be short of directly themselves intervening. And that is where the comment of Japanese Prime Minister Sanita Takeichi becomes very interesting, where she's saying that potentially Japan could be militarily involved in case China attacks Taiwan. United States doesn't say that part. They say we'll provide weapons to Taiwan. But if push comes to shove, I think it is a possibility, but it's not desirable. It's not likely in short term. China has so many other methods and means of military blockades, military exercises, intimidation, coercion, so many things. They are already seriously engaged economically in society. Intersocial relationships are very strong. So Chinese would ideally, take a rational policy of not killing the goose that lays golden eggs in that sense. Very strong economic relationship. But it's also true that in last decade we have seen enormous modernization of overall military, including navy, particularly amphibious forces. There's something called Shuiqiao floating bridge that they have showcased. They have also created causeway barges, so to create piers in case they are thinking of over the shore landing kind of situation. So China is very equipped to handle that kind of situation, but that's not going to be productive, is what I'm underlining. So Chinese will go to any length to do things short of a full-scale invasion.
Okay. Do you think, Anushka, there's a power struggle within the Chinese government between the Communist Party and the PLA. The iron grip of the Communist Party has increased tremendously under Xi Jinping, tremendously. I think that has been very well documented in civil society, corporate sector, everywhere. But do you think that there is a tussle with the military leadership because the military men at the top continues to drop out like flies and the charges are of corruption? So why is that happening? They get nominated and then disappear.
Actually, it's not so much akin to flies as it is to tigers, and it's a very popular phrasing in the Chinese anti-corruption narrative that you have to both swat the flies, which is the lower level officers, and grab the tigers, who are the higher level officers. And if you look at the purges in the past 2 years, most affiliated with the defense ministry or with the highest level leadership of the Central Military Commission, which is the highest defense and national security decision-making body of China, the profiles of those getting purged keeps getting higher and higher. And I wouldn't necessarily say that this marks a tussle between the CPC and the PLA, but there is definitely low level infighting in the People's Liberation Army and the Central Military Commission that could have potentially led to this, in addition to their existing actual reasons surrounding graft and inefficiency. For example, if you can look at the profiles of, say, Jiang Shengmin or He Weitong, He Weitong or Miao Hua or Lin Xiangyang, you will realize that most of them have affiliations with Taiwan war plans and would have solidly had a grip over reunification and Eastern Theater Command related war fighting endeavors. And if even one of them would have fell because China and the CPC operates on a protege client or a patron client network, it would have eventually opened up a can of worms for the others as well. And Miao Hua's purge came before He Weidong, but it was very likely that He Weidong would have been targeted next because they've had overlapping tenures both with each other and with Xi Jinping. And today they work closely with Central Military Commission on Taiwan related affairs. So definitely there is some, and of course the current first vice chairman of the CMC, Zhang Yuxia, is the kind of a de facto leader of an opposing faction which is non-Fujian, affiliated with the rocket forces and the ground forces, and he retains his power. And not only that, but now his protege Jiang Shengmin is the second vice chairman of the CMC, which again seemed very predictable once Miao Hua and He Weitong fell. So clearly there's a power tussle at the highest levels of the CMC leadership, but I do not think that this is leading to a weakening of Xi Jinping's power. It's definitely disappointing and leaving gaps and vacuums in the leadership, and the grassroots would definitely be in a dizzy because they don't know who to trust and what it's going to look like going forward.
Okay, the professor is saying, the Chinese are very wary of the Russian example. They think, that's the worst possible thing that could, happen to a party state. So, and they often quote it. My question is, militaries around the world create pushback. It's only in China that the military has not done a pushback in a undemocratic setup. The Communist Party weighs very heavy. How does that work?
Partly because of history and the philosophy of the Chinese Communist Party, where Mao's saying that the power flows from the barrel of gun and the party must command the gun in that sense, is clearly something that determines that party remains on top of things. And initial leaders were, of course, also wearing the twin hats. They were also military commanders as much as they were party leaders in that sense. But I do look in this, what is going on in last 2 years, as a clear bloodbath between Xi Jinping and his team, if his team supports what he's doing, and the top military commanders. Two defense ministers back to back have been removed, summarily. Similarly, a dozen senior military leaders, commanders, and so on. Now, important is to remember these are people who were anointed by Xi himself. So in that sense, what is it that they could honorably also be thanked and told to go home, but the way they are being removed and they just disappear from the scene after that is something that makes it suspicious. That there is something which is not very comfortable between Xi Jinping and some of these military leaders that he himself chose. This could have something to do with how military wants to conduct affairs vis-a-vis Taiwan or vis-a-vis other neighbors or vis-a-vis United States. and how Xi Jinping wants to sustain, and possibly if he's thinking of a fourth term, then his third term has been virtually lukewarm with the low level of economic development, lower growth rates, nothing spectacular. At least earlier they had these 2008 Beijing Olympics that made Hu Jintao say, oh, this is what he achieved, really great deal he did. But in that sense, the third term, particularly of President Xi Jinping, which was unprecedented, was meant to deliver and provide Chinese with something unprecedented as well, and that has not happened. And in that context, if this is how senior military leaders, including defense ministers, are being summarily told to go and disappear, definitely underlines that there is something which is